Captain Eric Nolan's gaze was fixed on the control panel of the Odyssey, where a jagged constellation of red alerts danced in chaotic rhythm. The asteroid field outside the viewport was a maelstrom of celestial debris, its colossal chunks tumbling in erratic orbits. Through the thickened glass of the bridge, the rocks seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy, threatening to devour any ship that dared to navigate their domain. "Engage thrusters to full power, Mr. Patel," Nolan commanded, his voice slicing through the tense silence. "We need to avoid those fragments." Lieutenant Patel's fingers flew over the controls. The ship shuddered as the thrusters roared to life, guiding the Odyssey through the narrow gaps between the tumbling asteroids. Each jolt and shiver of the vessel was a reminder of the danger they were in, but the crew moved with practiced precision. "Captain, the Odyssey glided toward Xanthar, its sleek hull cutting through the void with measured precision. The planet below was a forbidding sphere of gray and metallic hues, its surface marked by vast, sprawling cities and towering fortresses. The ship's crew, weary but determined, prepared for what promised to be a tense diplomatic encounter. In the conference room, Captain Eric Nolan stood by the viewport, his gaze fixed on the looming planet. He knew that Xanthar's leaders were not known for their patience or their kindness. The stakes were high, and their reception could tip the balance between safety and disaster. Lieutenant Harper entered, her expression taut with concern. "Captain, we've established contact with Xanthar's Central Command. They're expecting us," but their tone was cold. Nolan nodded, his face a mask of calm. "We'll proceed with the approach. Make sure the technology package is secure and ready for inspection." As the Odyssey descended into Xanthar's atmosphere, the crew braced themselves for the inevitable. The air was thick with tension as they docked at the planet's spaceport, a sprawling, militaristic complex that seemed to hum with an underlying menace. The airlock hissed open, and Nolan, flanked by Harper and other key officers, stepped into the reception area. The stark, imposing architecture of Xanthar's facilities was matched only by the austere demeanor of its leaders. The delegation waiting for them consisted of cold-eyed officials clad in uniforms that shimmered with the authority of their office. "Captain Nolan," one of the officials intoned, his voice devoid of warmth. "We have been expecting you." Nolan extended his hand in a gesture of diplomacy. "Ambassador Varnes, it's a pleasure to meet you. I hope our arrival finds you well." The ambassador's grip was firm but unwelcoming. "We are well, Captain. Let us proceed to the negotiation chamber." The chamber was as intimidating as the rest of the complex: high ceilings, sharp angles, and walls lined with shimmering holographic displays. At the center stood a long table, behind which the Xanthar leaders took their seats. Nolan and his team followed suit, settling into their respective places. The discussion began with formalities, but it quickly became clear that the Xanthar leaders were not interested in pleasantries. The ambassador leaned forward, his eyes narrowing as he addressed Nolan. "Princess Alara's request for asylum is unusual. Our protection comes at a cost, and we have revised our terms." Nolan's heart sank as he listened. The Xanthar's new demands were far beyond the technology package agreed upon. They sought not only advanced weaponry but also strategic resources from the Odyssey, a blatant attempt to exploit the situation. "That was not our agreement," Nolan replied, his voice steady but edged with resolve. "We are prepared to offer what was originally negotiated. Any changes to the terms will jeopardize our cooperation." The ambassador's expression remained impassive. "We are well aware of the agreement, Captain. However, circumstances have changed. Our needs have grown more urgent." A murmur of agreement rippled through the assembled Xanthar officials, their eyes gleaming with the promise of additional gains. The atmosphere in the room grew thicker, the air crackling with the unspoken threat of coercion. Nolan's mind raced as he weighed his options. The crew could not afford to offend the Xanthar or risk an escalation that might endanger Alara. Yet, capitulating to their demands could set a dangerous precedent. "We are here to provide assistance, not to be extorted," Nolan said firmly. "If these new terms cannot be negotiated, we will have to reconsider our position." The ambassador's gaze grew steely. Reconsider as you will, Captain. But know that our patience has limits. We will not be trifled with. The meeting ended on a terse note, with Nolan and his team escorted back to the Odyssey under tight security. The crew's morale was visibly shaken as they prepared for the next steps. In the privacy of his quarters, Nolan convened an emergency meeting with his senior officers. The situation was precarious, and their next move had to be strategic. We've been put in a difficult position, Nolan said, his voice grave. The Xanthor's demands are a gamble we cannot afford. We need to explore alternatives and be ready for any eventuality. Harper nodded, her face set with determination. I'll start working on contingency plans and gather intelligence on any potential dissent within Xanthor's ranks. The Odyssey's engines thrummed softly as the ship prepared to return to orbit. The crew's apprehension was palpable, but beneath the tension lay a steely resolve. They were not only protecting Princess Alara but also standing firm against the dark undercurrents of interstellar politics. As the ship moved away from the planet, Nolan stared out into the void, contemplating the storm that lay ahead. The galaxy was a vast and treacherous expanse, and their journey was far from over. The Odyssey drifted in the shadow of Xanthor, its hull glinting under the distant light of a binary star system. Inside the ship's war room, a tense silence enveloped the crew as they absorbed the fallout from the failed negotiations. Captain Eric Nolan sat at the head of the table, his face drawn tight with concern. The stakes had shifted, and their mission was now fraught with danger. Lieutenant Harper's voice broke the silence, cold and steady. I've reviewed our current standing. The Xanthor's demands could jeopardize our mission, but there's more to worry about. Nolan's gaze was intense. What have you found? Harper's fingers danced over a holographic display, bringing up a series of encrypted transmissions. I intercepted these. They're coded messages between high-ranking Xanthor officials. They're discussing something alarming. There's a plan to hand Princess Alara over to the Tyrellian rebels. Nolan's jaw tightened. That would mean certain death for Alara and a catastrophic blow to our mission. We need to act quickly. Harper nodded. Agreed. I've managed to trace the source of these messages to a faction within the Xanthor government. They're a splinter group with sympathies towards the Tyrellian rebels. They believe that aligning with the rebels will secure their own power. Nolan stood up, pacing the room with a sense of urgency. We need to expose this conspiracy before it's too late. What are our options? Harper took a deep breath. We could attempt to alert the Xanthor leadership, but it's risky. If the conspirators are as entrenched as I suspect, any interference might push them to act sooner. Alternatively, we could devise a plan to extract Princess Alara without drawing too much attention. The room fell into contemplative silence. The risk of exposure was high, but time was of the essence. Nolan knew that they couldn't afford to make a wrong move. He looked at Harper, his resolve hardening. Prepare an extraction plan, Nolan ordered. We'll need a team ready to act swiftly and discreetly. I'll inform Princess Alara of the situation and coordinate with our allies. We must ensure her safety. Harper nodded, her face set with determination. I'll get the team ready. We'll be prepared for any eventuality. In the dimly lit quarters of Princess Alara, Nolan approached with a grave expression. The princess, her eyes reflecting both fear and resolve, met him at the door. Captain Nolan, she said, her voice trembling slightly. Is something wrong? Nolan took a deep breath, choosing his words carefully. Princess Alara, there's a serious threat to your safety. We've discovered that there's a faction within the Xanthor government plotting to hand you over to the Tyrellian rebels. Alara's face went pale. That's disastrous. What can we do? Nolan's gaze was steady. We're planning an extraction. It will be dangerous, but it's our best chance to keep you safe. I need you to be prepared for a sudden evacuation. Do you have a secure location where you can stay? Alara nodded, her eyes hardening with determination. Yes, there's a safe house in the upper levels of the spaceport. It's well protected and has been used for emergencies before. Good, Nolan said. We'll make our move when the time is right. In the meantime, stay vigilant and don't trust anyone outside of our immediate team. As Nolan left Alara's quarters, he felt a knot of tension in his chest. The crew's readiness and Alara's cooperation were crucial to the success of their plan. The weight of the mission hung heavily on his shoulders, but he knew that failure was not an option. Back in the war room, Harper and her team were already hard at work. The extraction plan was taking shape, a series of covert movements, precise timing, and coordinated efforts designed to minimize risk. Every detail was scrutinized, every contingency planned for. As the hours ticked by, the crew's preparation became a seamless ballet of activity and anticipation. The Xanthars' political machinations were a dark cloud looming over their mission. But they remained focused and resolute. The Odyssey's crew braced themselves for the coming confrontation. The delicate balance of power was shifting, and their actions would determine the fate of not only Princess Alara but also the tenuous alliance between the Odyssey and the Xanthar. In the depths of space, where shadows of betrayal lurked, the next move could be their last. The dark expanse of space seemed to hold its breath as the Odyssey hovered just beyond the outer boundary of Xanthar spaceport. The tension on the bridge was palpable, with every crew member acutely aware of the delicate operation unfolding. Captain Eric Nolan stood by the command console, his eyes fixed on the holographic display showing the spaceport's layout. Lieutenant Harper, beside him, reviewed the final details of the extraction plan with a steely focus. The intricate web of corridors and security checkpoints was laid bare before them, each potential obstacle mapped out with precision. "All right, Harper," Nolan said, his voice low but urgent. "Give me the final rundown." Harper's fingers flickered over the controls, projecting the escape route onto the central screen. "We'll deploy a team to the safe house as soon as Alara's signal comes through. We have a 20-minute window before the Xanthar security forces will be alerted. Our team will navigate through the lower maintenance ducts to avoid detection." Nolan nodded, his expression resolute. "And if things go south?" Harper's gaze was unwavering. "We have a secondary extraction route planned. If necessary, we'll execute a diversion to draw the security forces away from our main path. But we have to time everything perfectly." A signal beeped, drawing their attention to the screen. The safe house's location blinked in bright red, indicating that Princess Alara had activated her emergency beacon. Nolan's heart raced as he gave the signal to commence the operation. "Deploy the team," Nolan ordered, his voice carrying the weight of command. "And keep me updated on every movement." The crew moved swiftly, a practiced rhythm of coordinated actions. In the safe house, Princess Alara waited anxiously, her breathing steady but tense. The Xanthar's political intrigue and the threat of betrayal had sharpened her resolve, making her a figure of quiet strength amidst the chaos. As the extraction team approached the safe house, they encountered their first obstacle, a pair of Xanthar security guards patrolling the corridor. With practiced precision, the team subdued them silently, their movements a well-oiled machine of efficiency. The team's leader, Sergeant Cole, signaled to Nolan through a secure channel. "We're in position. Princess Alara is secure. Initiating the diversion now." Nolan watched the spaceport's exterior through the Odyssey's surveillance feeds. A small, controlled explosion erupted on the opposite side of the spaceport, sending a plume of smoke and debris into the air. The security forces diverted their attention, creating a temporary gap in their patrols. Inside the spaceport, the extraction team led Alara through the labyrinthine corridors, their path illuminated by dim emergency lights. The journey was fraught with tension, every step a calculated risk. The team's movements were swift and silent, their focus unyielding, but as they neared the extraction point, the alarms blared, and the lights flickered ominously. A hidden faction of the Xanthar security had discovered the breach, and the spaceport was now on high alert. "Get to the shuttle." Sergeant Cole barked into his comms. "We have to move fast." Princess Alara, flanked by the extraction team, raced through the corridors, the sound of pursuit growing louder. Nolan's heart pounded as he followed the feeds. His eyes never leaving the central display, the shuttle's ramp was lowered, and the team ushered Alara inside. Just as the ramp began to close, a squad of Xanthar soldiers burst into view, their weapons raised. A firefight erupted, the exchange of fire echoing through the spaceport's corridors. "Go, go, go!" Cole shouted, his voice filled with urgency. The shuttle's engines roared to life, lifting off just as the Xanthar forces closed in. The team scrambled aboard, the doors sealing shut behind them. The Odyssey's crew held their breath as the shuttle ascended, making its way toward the waiting ship. The Xanthar's forces, unable to pursue, watched helplessly as the shuttle slipped through the spaceport's defenses. As the shuttle docked with the Odyssey, Nolan's face was a mask of relief and determination. The extraction had been successful, but the danger was far from over. The political landscape was in turmoil, and their mission was now a race against time to prevent further conflict. Princess Alara, safe aboard the Odyssey, looked at Nolan with gratitude and resolve. "Thank you, Captain. You've given us a chance." Nolan nodded, his expression resolute. "Our fight isn't over yet. We still have to navigate the treacherous waters of interstellar politics and ensure that the Xanthar don't fall further into chaos." The Odyssey's engines hummed as it prepared for departure, the crew's resolve steeled by their recent trial. As the ship moved away from the spaceport, the stars of the galaxy shimmered with the promise of uncertainty and adventure. In the vastness of space, where shadows of betrayal loomed, the Odyssey and its crew were poised to confront the challenges ahead, their fate intertwined with the delicate threads of diplomacy and survival.